that you need on your team, especially because most filmmakers don't have this unless you're an experienced producer and have dealt with the money people over a long period of time. I have a partner who was way more experienced than I was. He came from a venture capital background. He trained me, and I worked with him and learned the hard way. Wow, it was the hard way. Lost a lot of money over the years, and until I didn't have the vocabulary, which most filmmakers do not have. So you need to bring someone like him on your team, somebody that you can rely on to give you the real poop about how money works. Money works a certain way. Most producers and filmmakers don't have a clue. And because you don't, you need somebody on your team that understands the different way that money works so you can get the best deal possible. Because you also have to negotiate for the best deal possible, otherwise you'll be left out.
I think we have a quick question on
I have a question, actually. So I've put together a very lengthy business plan about a film. Well, any businessman worth his salt says the same thing. Well, what's my investment going to do? What's the payback? There seems that there is very, very little to go on as far as precedent in this, short of boxofficemojo.com, which has very little information. We're spending several $1,000s for an organization like Film Profit to get precedent on what some of these films do. Is there anything for starving artists like me who are looking for something to say, hey, this, my movie's exactly like Paranormal Activity, it made this much, you did this, here are figures, here's something rock solid that you as an investor can see. Is there anything like that?
Certainly you can, like if you're doing a horror action, and there's many different, if you get on Box Office Mojo, you know that horror is carved up in the different genres, and horror action, horror this, horror suspense, etc., etc. There's no question that you can use that, like if you're doing a vampire film, in the last 10 years, this vampire film has done this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. These are all good things to put in there. And the figures are pretty good because they mostly include the foreign as well as the domestic. We really haven't touched on distribution, and we're going to get to that, about how all that works too. But, I mean, yes, those figures are pretty solid. They really are. They're fairly solid, you can say, and it's, it's still a guesstimate, but it's a good guesstimate by a company that other people respect. I would also go into IMDb Pro, spend the money to go into IMDb Pro, so that you can talk to people like him who you wouldn't ordinarily be able to talk to because they have no time to take your phone calls because they're getting 300 phone calls a day. Right? So as much information as you can, yes, and you need to put that in your business plan. And you need to do the financials. If you don't know how to do that, you go to Mr. Newman here because he knows how to do that. Most filmmakers don't. And I'm not just talking about a budget top sheet. I'm not even talking about a budget that's line by line items. Okay, I'm talking about financials, where you think the film's going to be. Understand your distribution platform, where it starts with theatrical release all the way down to oil rigs, airlines, and military bases, and everything in between, and mobile and internet now. Those are all internet. Those are all mobile platforms. You have to understand from A to Z before you go talk to an investor. If you don't, you're going to come off looking stupid. He's going to say, well, I like the script, but, he's thinking to himself, you don't have a business thing together.
Along the same lines, I have to ask a question.
Sure.
Bruce, this question reminded me of something that I was about to ask as well. There has to be a different psychology to someone who will invest in the film, since a traditional venture capitalist is looking for that high X number of return. They're going to take 3 or 4 bets and hope one of them does the 100 times return, or the 20 times return, or the 30 times return on investment. How does that investor's mentality different than someone who's more likely to invest in a film, or can they actually be the same person?
Well, there's a caveat to that in the sense that, for example, right now in today's market, people who are of means or who invest are getting 2% of their money in the bank. Okay, so actually, it's probably not a bad time to go to somebody at this point and say, well, you wouldn't say this to them, but you would know that if somebody's getting 2% in the bank, maybe the risk is not that great right now to invest in a project like this, because how much can you really lose? If you keep your money in the bank at 2%, you're losing your investment to inflation anyway. So probably now is a good time to go and ask investors for money. So I mean, I don't know.
Harry said this at the very beginning, right? I mean, film has a really bad reputation among individual investors. And the reason is you get a producer or a director or some filmmaker come up to you as a high net worth individual, hat in hand, say, you're going to kill it on this one, right? Put all your money right here. And inevitably, the quote that we just raised a private equity fund with 18 or so, 18, 20 individuals. One of the investors says, you know, enjoy the premiere. That's the only thing you're going to get.
On the other hand,
Venture capital investing is not dissimilar from that, right? You invest in not 2 or 3, you invest in 10, right? You hope 2 go through the roof. You hope 2 earn their money back, and 6 blow up, and you make money.
the majors work that way too.
And particularly in small film investing, it is about distributing that risk amongst a large number of films. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but I need to find investors already has 8 other people.
They're out there. The headline in today's business section in USA Today was that money is loot. There's plenty of cash out there right now. You'll know that. There's tons of cash out there, but because of what's happened the last couple of years, and the economic climate around the world, and the stuff that's happening in Europe right now, notwithstanding, there's plenty of cash out there. Tech stocks and tech companies are beginning to be bought up again and go to IPO, which means that there's cash out there. So you learn, and David mentioned this earlier, David Merrill, he said, I asked him, what do you think the significance of that was? And the first thing he said out of his mouth was, well, a lot of these tech companies need content. You are content creators. That's good. But the bigger issue is money starting to loosen up in that sector, and which means that if you have your stuff together, you can go to money people, and if you have and can give them a good presentation, money's starting to loosen up, and they will give it to you. And let's face it, Hollywood is still a pretty sexy business.
And remember that during the last 9 to 12 months, a lot of people have made substantial gains in the stock market. So I'm telling you, there's money around. It's just in other people's pockets. You have to get it.
So along the same lines, you have a business plan here. They come to you or come to an investor.